Hi, you guys. A very big welcome back to the UK Beef Magazine podcast. You're here with me, your co-host Z, and as ever, I'm joined by my co-hosts Neale, Cranwell, Robbie, and Chan. How you guys doing? You all right?
Oh yeah, baby.
Yes. Glad to see you both. And today we've got a very special guest on the podcast. His name is Ryan Alexander. So much of an icon in British bodybuilding. I'm just going to let him introduce yourself. How are you, Ryan? Could you introduce yourself very quickly?
Yeah, hi everyone. Z, Robbie, Neale. Thanks for having me on the show. Hopefully Robbie won't ask too many embarrassing questions.
That's not guaranteed.
I know he will have tried to stitch me up just a little bit, knowing what he's like.
So basically, Ryan's owner of Saxon Gym, head of the PCA. If you guys don't know what the PCA, British for some of our American, this is it's one of the biggest, fastest growing bodybuilding federations in the UK, and it's just
it is the biggest. It's the biggest now, isn't it? Right? There you go.
Fantastic,
yeah.
Fantastic.
Just
so
like my boobies.
Questions, bodybuilding. In terms of bodybuilding, this is a man to speak to. But before we actually start, I've got some very serious sort of bits to get on. This might be slightly lost to the guys on iTunes, so I apologize. But if you are listening on iTunes, please check this out on YouTube. Now, I was doing some research, and I've actually noticed that Ryan's got teeth that are about as white as Neale's. So we're gonna have a Colgate clash. We're gonna have a white smile fight. Yeah. So what I need you both to do is bring in those smiles. Me and Robbie are gonna judge it. Who's got the whitest smile? And you've got yes,
oh, Ryan's lighting up. Wow!
I don't know, mate. That is a lot.
Yeah, but Brian's lights up in the dark. That's amazing.
I'm genuinely.
He's never got run over in his life, has he? Wow! He just smiles and there's those teeth, those blinding white teeth.
What we saying? Who's the winner of the first UK Beef Magazine podcast?
Shit, that's mad. I don't know. Ryan's teeth are just—they're killing me, Neale. I'm sorry. It's close. It is close. Considering my teeth are completely yellow, I mean that's really well done. You know, he's probably drinking bleach right now, aren't you, Ryan? He has a tan, so he's might look a little bit whiter. Yeah,
I'm going to be the partial judge. I've got my scores in here, and I'm going to go with Ryan just on the count.
Wow.
Neale's, I mean, but
Neale takes his hat off to him.
Is that the British words? We're talking like we're nitpicking
here. That's what you do in bodybuilding, nitpick.
We're nitpicking for a minute there.
Next time I get on stage, Ryan, I'm bringing the teeth.
So guys, if you're listening on iTunes, definitely check it out on YouTube. That was like you can like leave a comment, let us know who you think won. But yeah, no, brilliant. Obviously, it's been a tough week in bodybuilding, gents. So before we actually move on to asking Ryan some questions, I know you knew Rich in Dallas a bit better than we did. Could you just explain sort of how you knew him and what you were taking?
Yeah, of course. First of all, I'd like to pass on my condolences to both of Richie's and Dallas's family. Obviously, it's a very, very sad time. My experiences with Rich and Dallas, I've met them both a handful of times previously at some expos and then internationally. Both Rich and Dallas attended the Body Power this year, which the PCA were also hosting, where Neale competed. And I met you for the first time as well, Z. Yeah. Both very polite, both very motivated individuals. Obviously, their pursuit within bodybuilding was slightly different. Dallas, his focus was primarily the competitive side of bodybuilding, whereas Rich had competed previously, but then built himself into quite the influencing individual within bodybuilding. One of the most well-known people. Yeah. Both had lots of fans, but from my personal experiences, both really nice guys, both really humble, both approachable, and pleasant, and inspired a lot of people. So it is really, really a sad time for bodybuilding over the last week. Really, really sad.
Really tough. Neale, Robbie, have you got anything to add to that? Like,
well, obviously, it was a shock for the first kind of story that you heard was how Richard got put into a coma, medically induced coma, and kind of stories come out as to the why and the where, what had happened. I don't think anyone actually, apart from those that are that close to him, actually do know the reasons. But I mean, the takeaway from it is that, as Ryan's just said, is, I mean, bodybuilding hasn't got a huge amount of like popular personalities in it, and these two guys were two huge personalities that will be sorely missed. And you know, I've watched endless amounts of their stuff on YouTube, as so many other people have, because their personalities shine through. And you know, lots of people in this sport are very single-minded and they don't have a personality. So it's such a shame that, you know, and they're both really young. I mean, Dallas is especially young, but they're both really young. It's a shock, but it does, you know, makes you realise that, you know, the endeavour that we do and they done is it can be taken away at, you know, at the blink of an eye. So do, you know, to kind of step back and try and realise that you should enjoy the moments of life, because you don't know how short they are. But it's a sad thing. I mean, I hope the truth will come out as to, you know, because it seems to me slightly coincidental that two huge guys and huge bodybuilders in the same week. It's I mean, it's such a coincidence. I'm not sure if it's somehow connected.
Actually, Neale, there was a young South African junior bodybuilder world champion, and he passed away 1 week before Rich and Dallas. Obviously less known, but there was a video doing the rounds on social media where he was doing a guest spot, done a somersault, and unfortunately landed on his neck. Very, very sad. He competed with the PCA in South Africa, so that had happened. And then with the news of Rich and Dallas, it really has been a terrible, terrible couple of weeks within bodybuilding. Really sad.
Robbie, you had any thoughts to make?
Well, yeah, I mean, I met Rich. I never met Dallas. I did meet Rich actually, and queuing up for him at the Body Power as I did. But that was a couple of years ago now, and he was a really nice guy in the sense that you know, he actually said, "Oh, you got a nice body." I mean, you're looking good, bro. You know, he's like that. I think he was talking to me. I'm pretty sure he wasn't talking to my big busted lady friend. I'm pretty sure he's talking to me. I could have been wrong. I'm not sure, but yeah, no, he was great. You could just tell, very noble, humble guy, but very genuine. You know, really could talk to people and stuff, and that's what his appeal was. His appeal was he could talk to anyone, and he was honest with people, and he was great with people. You know, if you had something good that he liked, he'd tell you about it. He wouldn't be scared to, you know, a lot of other people would be scared to say how good you look and all that sort of stuff. He wasn't. He'd come straight out with it. He was a brilliant guy. You know, I got nice energy and a nice vibe off him. So you know, I thought he was a fantastic fella. Yeah, I obviously feel sad of his passing, because he was such a massive personality within the sport. So definitely, even though he obviously quit his competitive career, he really showed that there was other ways to go within bodybuilding. You don't need to be that competitive a bodybuilder in order to influence the trends within the sport.
Sure,
that's what I thought.
I mean,
actually, I wanted to hear about Ryan. Yeah, Ryan, I wanted to hear about you. Yeah, what happened when you sort of met them? Because I think did you sit down with them and chat with them and all that sort of stuff?
Times. I've sat down and had food with Dallas. I've sat down and had a you know, quite an in-depth conversation with Rich as well. It's just it's unfortunate that a lot of people seem to be passing judgment, or they have you know, an opinion of the circumstance. I think it's important that people hold back until, you know, the official news is released, because unfortunately, you know, bodybuilding is at times marginalised sport, and when things like this happen, you know, irrespective of the circumstance or the true circumstance, it's easy for people to then look at it in a negative light. And hopefully this isn't detrimental to the overall popularity of bodybuilding. It's important that people acknowledge the efforts of both individuals. You know, Dallas was extremely motivated. I believe he was one of the youngest ever IFBB pros. And the amount of influence that Rich had within the supplement industry was unbelievable. I don't think that it's ever been rivaled by a specific individual, not to my knowledge. He was massively popular, controversial at times, but he was clearly very motivated and had a good business strategy, and his approach appealed to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think Dallas for me was. I think he had such potential. His career. I think he placed 8th last year at the Olympia, and he was training with Flex this year. I mean, they look good in training. I follow them on Instagram, YouTube, and it was just such a shock. These guys look ready this year, and for me, my heart really. I really felt for Dallas more than, because I just loved how he talks, and he's so down to earth. And even though I never knew him, or I never met him as you did, but he was just one of those guys where you could just see his passion come through, even on watching a video, or you could just see how much he wanted it. So yeah, no, condolences really do go out to the families of Dallas and Rich. But yeah, thank you guys for that. We're gonna dive. So what we do generally, Ryan, we're just gonna fire some questions at you. Hopefully you can answer one of them. I can't speak for it. Like, I'm not sure what Robbie's got.
Yeah, that was dreading what Robbie's like.
So like, yeah, we're gonna so I'm just gonna fire with you. So how did you actually get started into bodybuilding, fitness, and then going through? I know you own a gym in the piece. Just could you talk us through how that all came about? How you sort of eased into it?
Yeah, sure. I started training quite seriously from about 20, 21 years of age. Didn't really have any direction, didn't know what profession I wanted. Was finding it difficult to get a job that suited me or, you know, fitted what I wanted out of life. And I was just a little bit lost, really. And bodybuilding and training at the gym was the first thing that really allowed me to have a positive energy or a positive outlet. Like a lot of people, it gave me a direction, gave me a purpose, and I just loved it. Absolutely loved it from day one. Seeing the visual changes, the progression, you know, the ability to change your physique. I absolutely loved it, and realised quite early on that I wanted to do something within the industry as a profession. But unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of you know, jobs that are on offer within the supplement or bodybuilding industry. After a few years of training, building up my knowledge, progressing quite well, I started selling supplements online, distributing some big brands. Done that from quite a young age, and bit by bit, slowly but started to buy some equipment with the intention of opening a gym. And I think I was 24 when I opened the first Saxon gym, which was quite young. The gym wasn't very impressive. It was a piece of crap, to be honest. There's a leaking roof, horrible toilets, no counter. We didn't have proper mirrors. We probably had 5 or 6 machines, but there was an energy that was quite unique. We were all motivated. And we were fortunate that we had a lot of young guys who were all exceptionally talented. And before we knew it, we built, you know, quite the reputation, focused all the energy and the effort into building the brand, building the gym. And then that allowed us to build from there, opening the second and then the third Saxon gym. So it was quite a journey. We've had a lot of success, but it's been enjoyable. Been really, really enjoyable. And I'm very, very fortunate that I'm still able to have a profession within the industry and do what I love.
Brilliant. So, did you compete?
What stopped you from competing, Ryan?
The last time I competed was, I think about 9 years ago, 8-9 years ago. Done relatively well. Had quite a bit of potential, in my humble opinion. But unfortunately, the gym, Saxon Gym, initially, when it was about me competing and me training, it didn't have a good business effect. We ran into financial trouble quite quickly, and I realised early on that I needed to focus more on the gym and building the brand as opposed to having the focus on myself. I know a lot of people have been able to own gyms and still actively compete, but the way things snowballed so quickly, having all the success with the athletes early on, that then allowed me to step into judging. I was invited to judge with yourself many, many years ago, Robbie, at my first couple of shows.
We did.
And things just grew from there, and before I knew it, we set up the Saxon Classic Bodybuilding show, wanting to do something a little bit different, and things just progressed. And before I knew it, we had the PCA, and it would be very difficult for me to then step back from that and then compete. I mean, I don't know where I would compete. It would be a little bit. It'd be difficult. It'd be a strange one.
No, I'm pretty sure I'd put you in men's physique. I'd love to see you in a bikini. Definitely. You know, it's not difficult at all, really.
Bikini class,
thinking about it.
exactly.
No, mankini. I'm pretty sure mankini. That would be the one for Ryan.
Yeah.
Have you seen how hairy his thingies are?
I am downsizing, so there might be an option there for me.
Yeah, it could be. Brilliant. Look forward to that. Definitely. Pay money to see that show. Really would.
It would sell some tickets.
I've got a couple.
So, how was the PCA? I was going to say, and who decided to name it PCA? And what does, for everyone who doesn't know out there, what does PCA sort of stand for? Not the obvious, obviously.
The acronym it stands for the Physical Culture Association, and there's actually a very interesting story.
And not the other one. Not penis, cocks, and arseholes.
No.
Okay, excellent. We don't call it that. Then
the name PCA, physical culture. It was created in a conversation between one of my other committee members, my partner in crime, so to speak, Warren Dyson, and Kai Green. Warren and Kai are very close, and Kai was discussing about the early days of bodybuilding. Before it was called bodybuilding, it was referenced as physical culture. It wasn't referenced as bodybuilding. So it was really in homage to that, doing some research. We wanted to be respectful to bodybuilding's roots, but then also have a modern approach as well. So that's where the name really came from. It was inspired by Kai Green and Warren's conversation, which isn't common knowledge. I don't think it's ever came up where we've felt the need to discuss that. But it's quite cool. So whether he knows it or not, he's responsible, for the name.
Wow. I wonder what I'm responsible for in life. I'm not going to answer that.
Yes, let's not.
Yeah, let's not. Yeah, Ryan, I was going to ask you about obviously the beginnings of the PCA and stuff. And when did it sort of actually take off? What sort of initiated that massive kind of increase and so on, where you just suddenly, like overnight, were pretty much the largest federation in the UK? How did that sort of come about?
Well, initially I had the Saxon Classic Bodybuilding show that was linked to the IBFA Federation, who both yourself, Robbie, and Neale are familiar with, as are many of us. It was linked to the IBFA show. That was the up-and-coming federation. They were doing lots of things against the grain that were a little different to other federations. It was good to be involved with the IBFA and their growth. The Saxon was a monster of a show. The way it was promoted, the ideas, the way it was ran was very, very different from anything else within the industry. And we had big plans. Straight away, we realised we could do something far bigger than just one show. After we'd ran with the IBFA for the first year, we decided to go independent and really have it as an international event. Well, that was the original plan, to have guys from Europe come across, because we were offering prize money which had never been offered before. It's quite common now that there's cash prizes at bodybuilding shows, but then I think even in the first year we've put up £2,000, which was a massive sum of money, which hadn't been done previously, certainly not in an amateur show. So we went independent. I reached out to Warren Dyson, who had assisted me with the promotion and kindly donated some prize money to the first action. Told him, we wanted to go independent. Warren had recently left the UK BFF. He was the Birmingham promoter, which was a massively successful show. And he'd left the UK BFF with Mike and Lisa Gelsey, who had also then decided to take their Welsh show and run it as an independent show separate from the UK BFF. So Warren reached out to Mike and Lisa. Then we reached out to James Collier, who had previously promoted the Muscle Talk show, which was a UK BFF show. And alongside James Collier, there was Simon Fan. They had both promoted together the British Grand Prix IFBB Pro Show. So together, everybody formed. We brought on board Eddie Freeburn, who was an IBFA promoter. And then that was the early foundations of the federation. We had 5 or 6 shows, and we just grew from there. We decided to approach it with the same sort of promotion as what we had done, which made Saxon successful. And before we knew it, lots of other promoters came on board, contacted us, wanted to be involved, could see that we were trying to do something positive, something that was a little bit different, and something that was more for the bodybuilders. Less as a business and more about rewarding their time and efforts, and trying to have better venues, better prizes, and overall a better experience. And that was only 2 years ago when we first began. And we've gone from starting with 5 shows to now having 25 shows in the UK. And internationally, we're in lots and lots of countries now. South Korea, we're ready to announce Pakistan. We've got India, South Africa, Australia, the Philippines. There's so many countries coming on board. And plenty more to announce as well over the next few weeks. It's going really, really well. It seems that the whole world, that they've all had issues with the way things have been run previously. They've wanted something different, but it's just been, everyone's waiting for something credible to come along that they can put their time and energy and efforts into. It's really snowballed. It's massive. It's taken everyone by surprise, even ourselves. The rate at which it's grown. Now we have the Body Power show as well. Yeah. It was quite a surprise to a lot of people. They took a massive gamble. They could have played safe and remained with the IFBB, but they were also motivated and inspired by our methods and the way that we were approaching things. And then we decided to team up, and that's been very, very beneficial to our exposure internationally, because a lot of people are aware of the Body Power show. Obviously, it's attended by over 100,000 people in the UK, and it is an international force. So it's going really well, and in such a short space of time as well. Now, two years, the rate at which it's grown is mind-blowing.
Yeah, so you're still running the gym, or what's happened then? Are you still running the gym, Ryan, or have you given up?
Yeah, still. I'm here now as we speak.
Excellent.
Less active as I used to be. We have a gym manager who oversees the day-to-day running of the gym. I still train here and try and do as many hours as I can when I've got the time, but the PCA now is the full-time job. That's 7 days a week, every day of the year. The amount of training every weekend throughout the year, there's a competition. So it's taxing, but it's enjoyable. I'm certainly not complaining. I love every minute of it. It really is an enjoyable experience.
I'm just going to dive in there because
bodybuilding.
Robbie, do you mind if I just jump in there? Because I'm just going to pick up on
something go for it. Sorry.
Right. So obviously, that Body Power, like that was Body Power this year, 2017. That was actually my first ever bodybuilding show.
Yeah, so I remember you. Yeah. I'm not sure if Robbie and Neale are aware. I had to have a word with Z because he'd walked in front of the judges' table to film Neale. Which is quite amusing, but I said to him, try and lower yourself, obviously, so you're not in the judges' line of sight. He was so quite excited. You were quite excited.
So good. It was so good.
He was very excited. For me, and he was sporting this massive afro as well, wasn't he? So the judges literally couldn't see anything on stage.
But that was, in my opinion, like just as a neutral observer, you can sort of count me as a fan. That was really well organized. The competitors looked like the music was great and the competitors were great. The standard competition was really good. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. So from a competitor's point of view, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty about how organizing a show is in a second. But for you, Neale, what's been your experience about competing for the PCA? Competing for the PSA, what's been your experience?
Well, the PCA has probably revived my continuation or longevity in competing. I've competed for 20 years and I've done every federation. I've sold myself to them all, and really just trying to find somewhere which felt like you got respect for what you've done. And lots of federations have tried that. There's never really been enough reciprocation from the federations, I don't think, for the bodybuilders. The biggest federations, obviously the UK BFF in the UK, if you want to sort of go down the pro line with that. And I've done that for years as well. A lot of that was because my partner, Georgia, was a bikini competitor, and you're kind of both tarnished with the same brush. So if one of you is competing with another federation, there's some biasness against you as a couple, which was very unfair, I thought. So to save any of that, I joined in with Georgia, and we competed for a good few years with the UK BFF. And I'd never had really any fun with that federation. It's very serious, and there isn't a huge amount of camaraderie between the competitors, I didn't think, compared to other federations. And then the IBFA has been fantastic. I've competed with them for years, done very well with them. And they're a great bunch of guys, and they're all about the competitors. But the PCA then came along with and opened its kind of doors to bodybuilding. And it took with it, in my view, all the best judges that were with the UK BFF. All the judges that I actually had a lot of respect for, and were honest, decent guys, and I would ask for advice for and feedback when I competed with them. They left, coincidentally, all at the same time, and formed this federation. And it seemed like, if these guys are going that you respect and look up to, it would be a good federation to compete with, and it has been. And then the fact that they've found a huge pocket of money to put into the shows, which seems to grow every year, is a huge drive and call. Yeah. For competitors, and because of that, the standard of competing is really high. And it's in the UK, unless you find yourself at the British finals, whether it's with NABA or the UK BFF, the kind of qualifiers are all kind of much of a done deal. Like, the standard isn't particularly great until you get to the finals. But with the PCA, and me and Robbie went and judged and helped out Ryan at the first Saxon show. We were there, we're like, Jesus, this was some serious competition and some great physiques. And this is
even the juniors. Do you remember the juniors, Neale? The juniors are the best lineup I'd ever seen.
Your lineup. It was Aziz Salou's first show, who's gone on and had a lot of success.
He's big. He's big.
Thomas was in there. McDonald, who recently won the PCA British finals. So it was a who's who of the best juniors all in one competition. I mean, there were a few hurt egos, but it's very rare to have. There must have been 15 juniors on that stage who any one of them could have placed top 4, top 5 in any British finals. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, crazy.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, so hugely inspiring. And then I think I went the following year and competed, and unfortunately I won the following year. I think it was the Saxon.
Saxon Class 2, yeah.
Yeah, and I just loved the whole experience. And then obviously they went on to Body Power, and that for me is like an iconic stage to stand on for the same reasons as Ryan said. So it made sense for me to do that. And I've done the British finals with them last year and this year. And it's, to be honest, if it wasn't for them, I would, I've kind of competed for long enough, and federations doesn't really, the goal of the drive for me to compete many moons ago was to better myself and have a goal and a drive to see what I could achieve through the year of training leading onto the stage. And kind of after doing that for 20 years, you've got an idea of where you're at. But the PCAs have given me a bit more of a lease of life to compete with now. And I think that's probably the last federation I will don my posing trunks with in the next few years and see when it's time to bow out. Really.
That's brilliant.
Good, Neale. Because me and you, we're going to keep competing. I've decided I'm going to compete till I'm like 78, maybe 69. That's a good round number. I think 69 is my number. Yeah. What do you reckon, Neale?
69. Sorry, Rob, I cut you off there because I just wanted to touch on Body Power because that was obviously sort of brings back good memories for me. So sorry.
Well, the question I was going to sort of ask Ryan really was actually a question about him, because to be honest, people don't realise this, but Ryan has actually had a fantastic visit. I think he had a good run at being like a top British competitor, top British bodybuilder, because unbeknownst to most people, Ryan has OCD, don't you, Ryan?
I do, Robbie. Yeah.
Ryan, hello. Yep, he has really bad OCD, and because of his OCD, it really helped him become a really good bodybuilder, because he would stick to that diet. He was spot on with that diet, and everything was just like, like clockwork. So he had the mentality to be a top class bodybuilder, but he kind of, like I said, gave it up and kind of gave it up to like help everyone else with their dreams and prep everyone else. So yeah, definitely take my hat off to him, because I was thinking, come on, Ryan, I want to see you back on stage, mate. Definitely, I really do. Just like Neale and Z want to see me back on stage, but obviously they want to see me in a mankini, which is slightly different. But,
not really,
but that's because that's what they've told me anyway. Yeah, so why did you, I mean, obviously you've said why you sort of gave it up and stuff, but did it hurt? Because you did tell me once that because of your OCD, you said you had to go to the dentist and get your gums like pulled up over your teeth or something like that. They did a bloody good job.
Well, it wasn't to do with the OCD. That was when I wanted my veneers done. So mine aren't as real as Neale's.
They see? He hasn't won. He hasn't won. They're fake. Yeah, he has fake teeth.
Somewhat enhanced. Mine are somewhat enhanced.
See that, Neale? You didn't lose, mate.
I cheated.
All natural, Ryan. All natural.
Yeah, 100%. But with regards to the OCD, I think it's a common trait in a lot of competitive bodybuilders and a lot of people who work out. It becomes a compulsion. I'm fortunate that compulsive behaviour, I'm allowed to then utilise that with the PCA. So I like to be heavily involved. I like to be hands-on with the artwork, the graphic design, the photography, every aspect of it. It suits my personality because there's so many different elements and an opportunity to be creative. So it was a difficult transition. I do miss it at times, I have to be honest. I do look at some of the lads in the gym and I see the success that they've had, guys that, who I started training, guys who were complete novices. They've gone on and become world champions and become
Nathan, isn't it?
Well, Nathan was already doing well. I mean, Nathan's just a good friend of mine. But I mean, like Adrian, for example, you know, who's one of the natural world champions, Faye, Rashane, Sergio, all these people who that I used to be kind of the benchmark. And then I had to let that go, and then they've gone on and had massive success. It's nice to see. Sometimes I'd like to be there myself, but to be honest, I never enjoyed competing anyway. I get far more satisfaction from the spectating side of it, watching the process, watching someone's body change, prepping them for a show, and you go through the process with them. It's very different. Being on stage, supporting someone on stage, it's two different things. Two different things. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy what I do 100%.
Cool.
See, I think personally, personally having people on stage, because I help prep people when I helped with George's career there as well, and I actually find that prepping people on stage is harder than yourself. You know, it's much more stressful and like turns your stomach over more than when you're on stage. You know, like you give so much into this person, and they're reliant so much on your advice that I feel the pressure there more so. Hoping that they get the result. And when you do it yourself, even if you take advice from people along the way yourself, to be honest, it just feels like it's you against the rest of the competitors, and just let the chips fall and see where you go. But yeah, I mean, it's great to see so many big names come out of your gym. I mean, that shows that there's a lot of like respect for the name still there. But there's also, from what I see, there's a great bodybuilding community in Birmingham itself. There's so many great gyms in your area.
Oh yeah, and then, we're still the small guys really. When we first set up, we're in Wolverhampton, just outside of Birmingham. We would all travel to the Birmingham gyms at the time. The old Emporium gym, Temple gym in Birmingham, which was obviously world renowned. And we would watch all the big guys train in Birmingham and aspire. We wanted to, emulate their success. And literally within the last 4 or 5 years, the amount of top quality athletes that have come out of Birmingham, Wolverhampton is unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. I'm not sure if it's something in the water or whether one of them's had success and then that's motivated the other one, and it's just a knock-on effect. It's great that we've got so many top gyms. You've got Emporium Gym, Ultimate Fitness, and Saxon. The amount of competitors that we have that come out of those 3 gyms alone is phenomenal. Really, really.
It is, and because obviously I'm a gym owner as well, and where I live in, we've got some great gyms around us, some huge gyms. So obviously I own Crunch, but we've got Monster Gym near us. I don't know if you've heard of Monster Gym. Like when Dwayne Johnson comes over to Rock, he always trains at Monster Gym. It's a huge gym. It's a great hammer strength facility. There's a good couple of RIP gyms as well, which is a chain. Absolute's another big chain, which is in Essex. And all of these gyms are really, decent bodybuilding gyms. And the irony of it is, because I'm friends with the owners, I train at other gyms as well as my own, just to get away from the questions and picking up weights after people in my own gym. But the irony, unfortunately, I think, where I'm more unfortunate down here than you are certainly in Birmingham, is I can train all of these gyms. Honestly, these gyms, if you'd have turned it back 10 years, would have been full of absolute beasts in there, like bodybuilders training. There's not one in there. I'm like one of the few bodybuilders in the actual gym training. There's a lot of people in the gym, but there's bodybuilding down this way especially has kind of lost its kudos more so over, guys following themselves, like Z will attest, with a video camera, and it's the social media kind of workout. And that I'm envious of, as a gym owner, because I would love to be more, as you are, surrounded by bodybuilders training in that environment, because the gyms here and my gym is built for bodybuilders, and yet you don't get too many that do it anymore down south, which is a shame. Because like you, where you travelled, I used to travel to train with Eddie Abu, one of Britain's sort of older great IFBBs, and we had people like Honey Glanville and some of the other pros, and and you train around in people that inspire you, you know, and that inspiration isn't really there anymore because them types of characters aren't there, unfortunately. This end of the woods. Anyway.
Yeah, it seems unfortunate now. There's the London gyms, Muscle Works, Iron Works, and the bodies that Muscle Works produced back in the 10, 15 years ago was unbelievable. Unbelievable. I don't know what happened. I mean, bodybuilding's still, in my opinion, extremely popular, but obviously the athletes are steering themselves more towards physique as opposed to bodybuilding, which that is what's more desirable. It's what's more marketable. I think we need to keep an open mind and still try and recruit people out of the physique categories into the bodybuilding if that's what they are receptive to. But there's certainly a lot more people nowadays training and in the gyms. You know, when I started bodybuilding and working out, it wasn't popular like what it is now. It seems everybody goes to the gym, everybody has a gym membership. But about maybe, in my opinion, offering more rewards to the younger athletes of today to get involved in bodybuilding. You know, and hopefully the larger prize money, the better venues, that will encourage them to compete in bodybuilding categories. Fingers crossed, we'll see.
Awesome.
I think it's a natural.
Go on.
Athletes and so on, and they carry on training for years and years and years, and obviously what happens is their bodies actually grow, so they actually do end up like, you know, they move on to then like muscle model, and then after muscle model they'll move on to probably bodybuilding. I think it's kind of almost like a natural progression, because it's like, I think it would take about 5 to 7 years, something like that, to actually have a decent enough body from day one to actually step on a bodybuilding stage and to be classed as a bodybuilder. You know, while a lot of these physique type athletes, they probably only train for 2 or 3 years. So I think it will be maybe a stepping stone as such, moving into bodybuilding. So we might even see in about 10 years time a massive influx back into bodybuilding. I don't know, it's just an idea. You know,
yeah, everyone seems to have this misconception that there's less bodybuilders now. Now, I don't think that's entirely true, because more people are working out. I think it's just a case of there's far more shows, far more federation. You know, 10 years ago, if you competed locally, you'd do your local NABBA show. So everybody would have to do that show. The UK DFF, or the EFBB as it was formerly known as, there were far less qualifiers, so you would get more congestion in the bodybuilding classes. And because there's more qualifiers, because there's more options, that will water down the overall number in the qualifiers. I think the finals are still as popular. PCA, NABBA, and the UK BF Mr. classes are still stacked. It's just the qualifiers that have reduced slightly, but with the influx of men's physique competitors, as Robbie has touched on, it will be a stepping stone, and I think that we will reap the benefits of those classes' popularity in the next 2 or 3 years. Some of the guys I've seen in the physique categories, there's some unbelievable talent, and I've witnessed firsthand some guys who have done physique have then slowly transitioned into bodybuilding classes. Which is great to see. Really, really, really good to see.
So, right now we've been sort of warming up to the questions. So we're going to take a sort of step up in gear, and I've picked up on a few bits that you've mentioned. So I'm just going to, you've just brought in a very interesting point there, and I'm going to I like to stir the pot. That's just what I do. So, and it's just my opinion, but. You're saying guys that are in the physique class. So I was at the British final. Neale was on stage. It was class 2. The guy that won it, Shane, I forget his surname. Great bodybuilder. But in my opinion, someone like Shane, looking at his physique, he's not as big and muscular as the other bodybuilders that were on stage. I thought he could have been competing in a different class, let alone winning. I think he was in a different class. I mean, what's the benchmark on that? What's your take on that? Because I thought he was possibly not ready for a bodybuilder. But that was just my personal opinion. What can you?
In referencing Shane had competed against Neale in the qualifier where Neale had beaten him. Now, on that day, Neale was deemed the winner. On the day of the British finals, Shane was deemed the winner. You will always have a difference in opinions. People seem to have an assumption that the judge's opinion is unanimous. But I could have a particular opinion. I may prefer Neale's physique or prefer Shane's physique. But it's a combination of all of those opinions. You will always have judges with a certain preference to a particular kind of physique. Some judges, will prefer muscularity. Some judges will prefer a more aesthetically pleasing physique, a more conditioned physique, or even a more balanced physique. And really, on the day, I mean, it just shows that the judging can be that close. That a few weeks previous, Neale had won, and then the few weeks after, then Shane had won. Another example at the Body Power, Randeep finished second in his category, but then at the British finals, with a few minor adjustments, he then went and took the overall comprehensively. So the judges will always have a difference in opinions, and we're never unanimous. That's why you have a panel. Lots of times I've argued with other judges after a contest, and I can't believe they've selected an athlete and I've picked a different athlete. And I think, well, I have this strong opinion and feel passionately about it, but then they equally feel as passionate about the qualities of the other person's physique. So you just have to try and get that balance, really. There'll always be different preferences, and that's why we have the panel. It would be far easier just to have one judge and he decides, but it wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be fair.
No, it would be fair.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the UK BFF if it was done.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Oh, wow.
I didn't say that.
Look. So just leading on from that, I'm sure you must get it. How do you deal with disgruntled competitors that come up to you after the stage? They had it in their head that they would, how do you deal with that? Do you get it a lot?
It's a difficult one. I think because when somebody's competing, the amount of effort and time and energy that goes into prepping for a competition, it's a massive sacrifice. And it's not just a sacrifice for them, it's a sacrifice for the friends and the family who ultimately have to pull up with them, which is a testing experience. So when their friends and family go and watch them compete, it's very easy to always support and favour the person that you're there watching, the one that you're supporting. So it's not always an accurate assessment. It's very hard for people to be 100% honest with themselves. Obviously, when the judges are there, they don't know the competitors. They might know a few of them or have been involved previously or seen them at shows, but a lot of the times you don't know who they are. So you're just judged neutral. You've got no vested interest. There's no emotion there. It's a case of, I like that guy's physique. I feel that guy's the best physique, and so on. Now, we always take that into consideration that there will be some upset people, but you have to be honest with them and give them feedback. I think it's important that they understand why they're placed where they're placed. And at times, someone may come to me and say, I felt that I should have won. And I might actually agree with them. And I can say, well, in my opinion, I also feel that you were, pushing for the top spot, or I personally had you in first place. But the panel of judges as a combined vote, unfortunately, that wasn't the case. You then try and give them some feedback to work on, give them some constructive criticism. If it's a case of the presentation needs adapting or the conditioning needs to be a little bit sharper. It's just about being honest, and you have to be a little bit understanding that they are going to be upset. Not everyone. Some people can take it on the chin, and other people find it quite difficult, a difficult pill to swallow. But as long as the judges are respectful and they're prepared to provide them with comprehensive feedback, then that does limit the amount of problems that we have in terms of complaints. Often people will voice their opinions on social media, put up a picture where, yeah, they look fantastic and the other guys don't look particularly good, but it doesn't tell or doesn't show a realistic portrayal of what happened. I mean, sometimes, there might be a contentious decision and you look back and think, okay, well, you can see where the guy's coming from. Maybe it was a shout for it, but they have to accept that on the day, you're leaving it to a panel of judges and their decision is final on that day. But it's tough when people voice their opinions on social media, their friends and their family always wade in and then, to be honest, exaggerate. They make the situation far worse. They will say, we agree, it was terrible. How could this guy have beaten you? Look, he doesn't look conditioned because the guy might not be holding the pose at that particular time. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one. But I'll always publicly discuss, my opinions or why I've placed somebody there. I'm confident enough in my own opinion to say, okay, well, this is what I felt. This is my assessment. And I'll stand by that. If someone wants to ask me or they want to discuss it openly on social media, I prefer if it's done in private. But if they want to do it publicly, then by all means, we're confident enough that we're fair and that we're honest and that the assessment is an accurate one. But it's the nature. You're never gonna please everybody.
Just wanted to butt in there. I heard some gossip. Some rumours going around the old PCA mill that
right.
You might be might be having some possible Miss Olympias or even some ex Mr. Olympia people coming over. Is there any truth to this?
Right, I couldn't possibly confirm any such rumours, Robbie.
Okay, that's good.
You're pushing me and putting me in a difficult position.
Okay, what am I putting you in doggy style again?
All I can say that with the increase in popularity and the very, very large prize funds, there is a lot of top names, household now, or bodybuilding royalty, who will be competing in the PCA. There's already been quite a lot of boys crossover, even for the PCA show in Kuwait in a few weeks. There's one or two former top 10 Olympia guys who have registered and are ready to compete in that.
Wow.
And couple that with the existing or the previous IFBB pros that have already moved across. It's shaping up for some excellent competition. There's so much choice and opportunity out there, and the prize money that's been offered is phenomenal. So it's going to turn people's heads and change the status quo, so to speak. And it's early days. We've already raised phenomenal sums of money, but it's just the beginning. I mean, already we're in a financial position where we can increase the prize fund considerably, so it will change the whole dynamic of competing and the international competition. But we'll see. There's a couple of big names to be announced for the Body Power next year that will certainly surprise people and shock a few people.
That's awesome.
But that's all I'm going to say on it. I don't want to start saying names and specifics, but yeah, as you've seen already, there's been some big names. There's going to be bigger names.
Wow, that's good to know. Do they have to actually give up their IFBB Pro status to compete in your shows?
Unfortunately, they would. That's not what we would like, but that is a stipulation by the IFBB. We are currently running international Super Series, Body Power Super Series shows as Pro-Am competition. So they're open to an amateur who is deemed of a high enough standard. And it's also open to professional athletes from NABA who are allowed to compete with no restriction. And there is also the opportunity for IFBB guys to come across if they want to. I believe they could then go and try and achieve a pro status with that federation again if they wanted to. But there's so many guys outside of Europe in the developing countries that people are unaware of. There's some real talent. We've had IFBB pros come over and compete in these Body Power Super Series contests and been comprehensively beaten. So it shows the level of standard that's out there is vast, and it's only increasing. You know, there's athletes over in China and over in Russia. They're phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. But these aren't countries that have been IFBB strongholds. So these athletes haven't gone that route. They've stayed as amateurs or stayed within their respective federations. What we're trying to accomplish is to have an open playing field that's open to all athletes and that can reward them with real opportunity and real prize money. The prize money has been too small for too long, in my opinion. I mean, the Olympia prize money is impressive, but it still needs to be higher. If that's the premier show, then the athletes need to be rewarded accordingly. And I know what the federations make. You know, there's no one who's in a better position to discuss the ins and outs of the finances of a federation. And trust me, the amount of money that's generated, it is extremely high. So it begs the question, it raises the question, what's happening to the revenue and why isn't that working its way across to the competitors? I believe it will, if we're talking specifically about the IFBB, because they now have a federation that's getting tremendous exposure, that's already the biggest in the UK, it's the biggest in the Middle East with our partners Wawan. So they will have to change their approach, which is actually a good thing because it's beneficial for the bodybuilder, which is the priority. If they increase their prize fund, then it's a positive thing for everybody that's involved. You know, we're not looking at it from a selfish point of view. You're thinking that they're our rivals. It's a case of if there's more rewards for the athletes, then that's a positive step forward. And that is happening. You know, the venues are getting better, the prize funds are getting better, and hopefully that will continue.
And Ryan, with this with this kind of international domination that's sort of happening fairly fast, and the money that's been generated from other countries, especially this Warren Classic.
Wawan in the Middle East.
Yeah. Is there something you're thinking about doing about televising these things? Because, I mean, there's money, that's kind of money over there. If it was televised, then the other countries' PCA guys like myself, I could watch that from the home, and it would make it more mainstream, which is kind of what's missed with bodybuilding for a long, long time.
I agree. It's a difficult one. With regards to the bodybuilding categories, bodybuilding is still a marginalised sport. It's not approved by the general public, and it's not marketable by the big brands and the big companies. The bikini and physique is, but we'll always have that issue with the bodybuilders due to the performance-enhancing drugs element. Obviously, that does go on. There is a degree of that. And that is off-putting to the general public and to big companies. Now, there is a demand, I believe, for bodybuilding fans, and certainly televise it in that respect. In trying to make it mainstream, that would prove a little bit more difficult. But that does at times depend on the specific country. For example, the PCA show in China, which is in a couple of weeks' time, that's being televised on their national television, and obviously the population of China is immense. I think the figures that they've quoted is in excess of 200 to 300 million will watch this PCA bodybuilding show. The prize fund over there is $200, which isn't miles away from the highest in the world. It's certainly the highest in the Far East. And on the same weekend, we have the PCA and Wawan Classic in Kuwait, and their prize fund is $250,000. And that's what we're giving away in just one weekend of bodybuilding, which is unbelievable. The revenue side of things, it would be great if we could get that from televised events, but in reality, we're able to do that from ticket sales, sanction fees, membership fees, entry fees, all the above. We are using those funds to put it back into the prize funds, whereas, unfortunately, some of the other federations, not naming anyone in particular, they're keeping that money. They're not putting that back into the sport. They're using that as a personal windfall, and it's not working its way back to the person who deserves it, which is the competitor. And that stranglehold on the sport has stopped it from growing, as everyone would like to see it grow. So this, in my opinion, will change over the next 12 months, 2 years. There'll be an increase in prize money across all federations. Federations will start having to do, they'll have to do more to be competitive, because there's so much choice, there's so much opportunity, and so many options. If they aren't going to be thinking, then they're not going to be able to survive, because there's so much. Even in England, there's 6-7 federations all vying for the same pool of athletes. So it's a case of survival of the fittest, so to speak.
I think Neale's touched on a really good idea, that Ryan, which is why not televise or YouTube individual categories, for example. Have cameramen there, because I think as he's saying, it'd be really good if we could see these categories on YouTube. It'd be brilliant. You can literally see your mates and so on, your people you're following, your family members. I think that should be a next step, because that in itself will actually increase the popularity of bodybuilding, and again make it more like mainstream, and then hopefully a new line of stars will be born, sort of thing. I agree. With regard to streaming online, that's at times quite difficult. That's still a developing platform. With regards to putting them on YouTube, that's something that we are doing at the next international events. The individual competitors, routines, the classes, they will be put online free of charge. We then have the option to monetize the videos. That can then be used as a form of income generation that we can then put back into the prize fund. So anything that we can do that generates revenue, we're certainly in favour of. It's our ambition to double and triple the existing prize funds that we're already offering, and there's no reason with the business strategy that we've got why we can't do that. I mean, what was the prize money total at the PCA finals this year?
This year it was
30,000.
It was just under. It was 25 in the region of 25. The body power was 50,000, and then if we add in all the qualifying shows prize funds, we're exceeding 100,000. So we've managed to accomplish that within our first 18 months. The aim is to increase that again for next year, and the figures and the work that we're doing, the numbers that we're attracting, the ticket sales that we're getting, it's achievable. Certainly achievable.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'm just really impressed, because obviously, like you said, the first Saxon Classic show just generated, like you said, £2,000 worth of prize money, and that was a huge deal back then as well.
At the time, I mean, to be honest, I didn't even have the prize money. It was a massive gamble. It was one of those scenarios.
Did you have to enslave one of your children for the prize money?
Well, I've got enough of them, so but fortunately not. What I did, I took I made an educated assessment, an educated risk gamble, that if we put up prize money, that would generate more interest, more ticket sales. Lo and behold, we sold the show out with 7 weeks to go, which I don't think had ever been done at an amateur bodybuilding show. There was no physical posters that had been. It was all done on social media. So with the ticket sales, that then allowed us to meet the original prize fund announced of, I think it was 1,000. We then increased it to 1,500 once we realised the money was coming in, and then we increased it again to 2,000. and then we increased it the following year to 2,500. So that sort of approach was implemented with the PCA. I mean, the PCA was built on a more of a solid foundation. The Saxon was a little bit of a risk. But once I'd got my head around the numbers, the figures, what could be achieved, what was possible, we just utilised the same approach, and it's working. It's had massive success. It was a gamble. I mean, if we couldn't get the numbers, the original Saxon show, I don't know what I would have done. Then I would probably have had to have sold one of my children into slavery.
Yeah, that would make sense.
But I was confident. I was confident that it would prove to be successful. And it's the same with the PCA. The amount of investment of time from all of the staff. Now, Mike and Lisa Gelsty, Warren Dyson, James Collier, Eddie Freeburn, Margarita, our Scottish promoter, all these people live and breathe the sport, and they all want to see it thrive. I mean, we've got an excellent team of staff, and we all work extremely hard. It is like a full-time job for everyone, and all of these people also have full-time jobs. But within the next year or 2 years, we're going to need to have some additional staff, because the rate at which we're growing, it's probably unsustainable. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Right. I've got a question.
Well, do you need a fluffer? I'll be a fluffer. I'm good at that.
Wow. No, I'm sure they don't need a fluffer.
I'll bear it in mind.
Can I be your manservant?
There's the
Can I be your manservant, Ryan? I'd love to be your manservant. I'll be walking around in my pants with a silver service tray, serving you champagne. Is that okay?
Put him off his champagne. But I've got a question. It's open to all three of you. Just as from a neutral point of view. Why haven't we seen any really big name bodybuilders since Dorian Yates go overseas and just mash up the Olympia, mash up the Arnold? What would you say is the state of British bodybuilding? How are we competing globally? I mean, you guys are doing a brilliant job at the PCA of just flying the British flag, but what's the state of British bodybuilding in your opinion?
I mean, there has been a recent increase in British guys competing over abroad. I mean, there's been the success of Nathan Diasha. He's done tremendously well, but it's still early days. The level of support I feel that the Americans and some of the other countries have had over the last decade has allowed them to monopolise the contests. Dorian was a unique individual, an incredible focus and a mindset. There was Ernie Taylor, a little bit after Dorian, who was helping out today at the PCA posing workshop. But really, Nathan's been the first one from the UK to make any real impact. But Nathan had to move to the Middle East in order to do that. When he was in the UK, if he was to remain there, I think that he wouldn't have been as successful. He took the move to Kuwait and the support of the guys in the Middle East to really allow him to reach his potential. He's going to get better and better, and who knows, he may be able to dominate the IFBB Pro League or the Olympia in years to come.
So why isn't Britain able to create that sort of camel crew environment where these guys, you're just churning out train? What's
my opinion? It might be a little bit controversial. It's really to do with the British bodybuilding or the UK BFF, the level of support, or the lack of support for the athletes, which is really why the PCA was set up. We tried to do things in a different way to provide the cost of flights, the cost of hotels. There's a lot of English guys or British guys competing internationally who are having to finance that themselves. So they would probably like to compete in multiple international IFBB Pro shows, but they're not able to do it because they have to finance themselves. Whereas what we're doing with the PCA, some of the prize money that our guys have won, which is phenomenal, but we're enabling them to do that because we're covering flight costs, we're contributing to flight costs, we're contributing to hotel costs, registration fees, and all of the above. If there was more financial support in the UK for the UK athletes, then I believe that we would dominate the international circuit, because we have still got fantastic physique. We've got fantastic competitors across the board. We've got fantastic bodybuilders, men's physique, bikini competitors. So with a little bit more support, I mean, I think that we could do extremely well.
What's your take, Neale, Robbie?
Well, I think I've decided that I'm taking Neale and probably Ryan, and we're going to go over to Kuwait, and we're going to make our own team up, and we're going to call ourselves the Camel Toe Crew. And I've got a feeling we'll do really well. I think we'll do fantastic.
Yeah, who knows?
Probably not on the same circuit, but we'll do really well. What do you reckon, Neale? You up for that?
That's good. I'm always a fan of leggings, Rob.
Oh, I know you are. Apart from obviously brown leggings today for you. Yeah,
so
the Camel Toe
like
Crew. What do you reckon?
Can we name this?
This is going to be a new venture. It is, yeah, but you just have to wear your tights up a little bit higher, so it has to pull up to your belly button, so you get that proper ass camel toe. It's got to look good. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow, thank you for that, Robbie.
Anytime.
Thanks, Neale. What's your take? British bodybuilding. Why? I mean, like, what's your take, mate?
Well, I think, I mean, the success over there is down to the fact that you leave, as Nathan did, and some of the other pros that have gone out there and done remarkably well and brought their physique up. It's because you leave all the stresses, and you leave life and the stresses of life, or family, or commitments, or finance, or whatever, at home, and you just commit yourself to that endeavour of live, train, sleep, repeat, and there's no distractions. Whereas we all have to work a job back in the UK, and you've got your tail sort of between your legs, rushing from one job to another, dropping the kids at karate, getting back to drop the other one to nursery, plus work your full-time job, plus fit in your training, don't miss a meal. It's hard to get it all done. And if you take that away, with the experience you gain over the years, and that desire's there, and you put yourself in that environment, then obviously without the stresses, which I actually think is the main reason that holds people back from their potential, is cortisol and the stresses which can come indirectly, not just from bodybuilding, but from life. And if you can take them aside, and you can just focus 100%, then I think everyone would bloom, to an extent, depending on their genetics. But I don't think our country allows that. I mean, their country is really forthcoming with making that a popular endeavour, and putting that, to be honest, it's put their country on the map in a lot of ways. Whereas in the UK, we don't get that. I mean, I've competed internationally for many, many years with all different federations, and competing to the other and speaking to the other international athletes. Their governments actually fund them to compete as athletes. So they will pay them a monthly salary to be competitive bodybuilders, because it brings notoriety to their country, and it makes their country, known. And these are like lesser kind of wealthy countries, if you like. Whereas the UK, we don't get any support internationally, financially from the government, let alone, it's hard enough to get the gym owner to kind of give you a free pass because you compete. So it's just a different environment.
That's a very interesting point. So it's basically down to guys like Ryan who are running federations and gym owners who are supporting, but there's no support from the government. That's a very interesting point you raised there, mate. I
have a good example. There was a gentleman competing with our partners while one in the Middle East. This gentleman was from Bahrain. Now, the Bahrain government had basically promised him, once he won the top show, they would buy him a house. What? And it was a size. It was a considerable house. It wasn't a 1-bed, 2-bed. It was a mansion. And that was the level of support that they were offering, because they wanted the success. It would show them in a good light. The way that they view the sport in the Middle East is completely different to the way it's viewed over here. When you attend the shows, just meeting general people off the street, they all seem to have some degree or knowledge of bodybuilding. They could name, 10 professional athletes. They all follow the sport. A bit like how people in England follow football, or they have a basic understanding of football. The general public over in the Middle East, they all fully follow football. Bodybuilding, which is it's very, very bizarre. Refreshing. I mean, it's fantastic for the industry. And as Neale had pointed out, it's put Kuwait on the map. This is a small country that's currently dominating the bodybuilding industry worldwide. Whereas it used to be America was the mecca, or where people want to train. Nobody's going to America, the Middle East.
Yeah, I mean, it is a shame. I mean, in the years that I competed at countries such as Hungary, or even European countries such as Italy and stuff, and you would turn up on your team bus to a venue, to a competition, you would have members of the public or spectators that were there. They would welcome you like some sort of royalty off the bus, like you were special. You turn up at even the British finals in the UK, and the members of the public that are passing by looking at you like some absolute treat. And the difference is amazing. You would be stopping for like photos and selfies and feeling like, wow, I'm actually getting respect for all that work and endeavour that I've done, as opposed to thinking like everyone is looking at me or sniggering behind your back like what you did in the UK. And that's a shame. But yeah, to be brought up in a different country like with that upbringing and that look on the sport is only going to make, as Ryan says, a huge amount of unknowns waiting to come out. And when I've competed abroad, and you will see some of these guys that you think, oh, these are pros in the making. I mean, Samuel Haddad was one that's kind of famous, I suppose, enough now for people to know. And he was an amateur for like ever. And he was one of the best physiques, but just one of many, because his country rewarded him to compete as an amateur so well. I think he got cars and all sorts to compete. Yeah. Whereas, that would just seem absolutely an extreme absurdity to hear that in this country. So I think, it's horses for courses, but I hope we don't get left behind because of that.
But I mean, listening to Ryan, I think these guys are taking a lot of steps in the right direction as a federation. So I certainly wish you guys all the best. We've just gone over the hour mark a couple of minutes ago. So, I mean, we're going to start winding up. I don't know if you guys had any questions. I've got some listener questions here. And I don't know if you Robbie, wanted to sort of...
I've got plenty of questions, but go for it, Neale.
I'll get mine out before Robbie gets his out.
I can get mine out right now on screen. If you want me to get mine out, I'll get mine out.
Please don't get anything out. Please don't.
I ain't got the magnifying glass.
Haven't you? You better get your glasses, Neale. Get your glasses, mate. Go on.
I mean, it's only a light question, Ryan, but I see, in a couple of years, things have changed in the federation. Like, you've moved goalposts slightly. So, for example, for like looking at myself personally competing with guys, my intention was to compete level class 2 until maybe I got to the 45, master's degree, master's kind of bracket, and then maybe move into that if I felt that I was too haggard for the class 2 at that age. And I see now you've moved it to 40. Is that right? Is that in line with the rest of the international scene, or why is that?
Yeah, originally the decision to have the age limit at 45 and 55 attempt to encourage bodybuilders to remain in the Mr. classes. That's the intention. And to try out a split and see if it became more popular or less popular. Unfortunately, it became quite apparent that we weren't getting the numbers that NABA were getting in the Masters category. We seem to far eclipse them in every class except the Masters. And I think that was primarily down to the age split of 45 and 55. So we reverted back because it seems that is the better business decision. We'll get more athletes able to compete in those categories. We tried it, but we wasn't as successful as we'd hoped. So it's a case of if it didn't work, then we make adjustments and then we try something else.
Yeah, I mean, it made sense. It made sense to me speaking to, I think it was Warren that told me initially about it. Because there's guys like me, Chris Jones as well down here, Robbie, you know, we're all like early 40s. But we should, you know, in my view, we should all be still competing in the masters classes. Whereas if you've got almost the easier option to kind of like almost catapult yourself back into the top, you know, the top spots of the class if you're in the 40s, because you'll be one of the younger in the class. So, you know, and now I've got more of a chance of winning.
Well, not against me and my mankini. You wait now.
No one could beat that. Luke.
Could you? And the hair? Oh, I don't know, Neale.
So what list of the questions did we get through, Z?
I've got one myself that I wanted to ask, right? Like, I've obviously been to a couple of shows, and the bikini athletes are just incredible.
Oh,
Incredible. Like,
Is that a personal favourite, Steve?
Very top category, top competitors, top quality. How do you deal with having to look at so many fit women? How do you judge it? How do you, like, when they come up after the show, it's like, how do you, like, because I'd be going, like, I'd be losing it. I'd be like, all right, come give us a hug. You came second.
It's quite easy, Z. What Ryan does is he actually hides his Viagra, so he just throws them, you know, hides them in the back there and stuff. He won't touch him, won't go near them. That's what I would do.
No, it's to be honest, we take our job seriously. You know, we're there to do a job. We have a role to carry out, and it's still a competition. Obviously, I'm not complaining that the bikini category is a personal favourite, but on the judging panel with the statisticians is my wife would be situated. Obviously, everyone's well behaved, and to be honest, we all love the sport and take it very serious. So all jokes aside, it's the same as any other class. Once you've judged one bikini category, and then you've done multiple, it's far easier, far more straightforward. You get used to judging that specific class and knowing what to look for. I think initially for judges it can be a little bit overwhelming if they haven't judged bikini previously. Now, what am I looking for? There's not a massive difference between competitor to competitor. So in that respect, it's actually quite hard to judge because the levels of
differentiation.
Yeah. Basically, there's not a lot to choose one over the other one. But the more you do it, the easier it is. But clearly, Z, you wouldn't be a good candidate
for a
judge bikini.
I think it'd be brilliant. I think it'd be absolutely amazing, as long as he was wearing his speedos and a very tight chastity belt. I think it'd be absolutely fine, and obviously strapped down, because poor Z can't control himself, can you, Z? Absolutely can't control yourself.
You're too busy at making an assessment on the physique. You're there. It's a process. You're looking at them. You're looking at the physiques. You're comparing the physiques. That really wouldn't. That side of things wouldn't really. It shouldn't be coming into a judge's mindset.
Yeah.
Well, once you've worked in the sweet shop long enough, you stop wanting to eat the sweets.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a very apt analogy, Neale.
Yeah.
That's why Neale's teeth are so perfect. Obviously, that's the reason.
Not one veneer either.
You need some more sugar, Neale. You definitely need some more sugar, mate. Ryan, just a quick question.
Good.
I was going to just ask you. Now, you must see yourself in a massive position in the sense that you could actually put bodybuilding right back on the map. You could put England, UK, right back in there because of everything that you're sort of giving back to the sport. I was going to ask you actually, are you going to be rewarding from next year or so at the finals? Will you be rewarding the top 3 or top 5 places with prize money?
Yeah. Since it's a very good point there, Robbie. That is something that we are looking to implement. Previously, we've just rewarded the class winners with £1,000, but with any potential increase or scope with the increase in prize fund, it's very important that we reward more competitors. So as opposed to 25 people going home happy that they've won £1,000, it would be nice to have a a smaller amount for second and third place. So you're going home with 75 people happy. So I think it would make for a better competitor experience, and there's more equality in that as well. I mean, you've always got to reward the winner, obviously, because they're the winner. But everybody's making a sacrifice to finish as a runner-up in the British finals is a great accomplishment. We had trials this year, the Silver Shield, which was all the competitors that finished second place, then went into an additional category, the Silver Shield category, and the winner of those classes then got prize funds as well. So it's certainly something that we're pushing towards, and we would certainly like to implement it. So any increase in prize fund, which is probable, next year we're hoping to have second and third place receive cash amounts as well.
Brilliant. That's great.
That's fantastic.
Right, so come on, questions?
We've just got a couple of listener questions.
Yep.
A gentleman called Ahmed Khan says, who do you think is going to take the Olympia this year, and who's looking good for the future in British bodybuilding? Names. I think he wants names there. He wants to carry out some names. For me, I've done an online poll recently on the Competitive Muscle Forum. Unanimous. Everyone feels that Phil will take it. Phil, I think it's between Sean Roden and William Bonyak, who I personally like very much. I think Dig's fantastic. But it's exciting to see Nathan D'Asher up there in the mix. I think structurally, aesthetically, he's a very, very strong competitor. It's rewarding a more streamlined physique as well. You know, people will always like the freaks such as Big Ramy, but I think that we should also reward the more aesthetically pleasing physiques. In terms of who to watch out for in the future, if I'm being specific to the PCA, we've had some real standout juniors. It's probably very, very difficult to pinpoint just one or two. In British bodybuilding on a whole, you've got a massive amount of young guys, 23, 24, that sort of age range coming through. You've got Dean White, Rashane Thomas, Jordan Gomez, Guy Harding, Reece McDonald. You've got Kuba and Aziz from the UK BFF. So we're in a very, very good era, in my opinion. The amount of quality juniors that we've got, there's a couple of good guys to come back and compete in the juniors as well. Tyler Cook, for example, the young guy who won IBA finals last year, was excellent. So there's a lot of talent out there. There's a lot of good guys. It'd be nice to try and get them all on one stage together, but logistically it's very difficult to do. That's brilliant. Cheers, mate. Now, the next question is from a gentleman. His name's Jake Pinehurst. He's from Preston in Manchester. Now, I did sort of about whether we were going to include this, but I thought, what the heck. He goes, pardon?
That doesn't sound good. Okay, fire away.
He says, you've worked with Mikel Wright, who won the British novice class this year. Did he have a shoe-in because he was working with you?
I've worked previously with Mikel on presentation. I've not ever been involved in his actual prep. I made a decision to pull away from prepping any athletes, because I don't want any conflict of interest or people such as the gentleman in question making that assumption. I have to be neutral at all times. And to be honest, knowing an athlete is more than likely detrimental to them because you know their weaknesses. If there's any conflict where there's a close relationship between yourself and a competitor, you pull out of that class is judging. I didn't actually judge the novice category. I was on the judging panel, but my score wasn't submitted. For example, there is a gentleman from my gym, Rashane Thomas, who competes. People would make the assumption that you would show him some sort of preferential treatment, but it's just not the case. It's just not the case. Any judge that's a credible judge, that they would never find people that would know. It's down to who's the best physique on the day. For me, it doesn't really matter who wins because the PCA competitors, it's beneficial for me either way. Whether it's someone I know or an unknown person, it doesn't matter because it benefits the PCA. It doesn't need to be a specific person. McCarver, for example, at that novice class at the British finals, very closely pushed by Harding, who's another guy who's had a lot of success with the PCA over recent months, over the last 12 months. So you're aware of athletes, but then you get a couple of surprises as well. The gentleman in third, Thomas Richards, he pushed both of them. It was close. There was another guy from Northern Ireland who didn't compete, who would have troubled McCall, Guy and Thomas, but unfortunately he didn't compete. So as a bodybuilding spectator, it doesn't matter who wins as long as the judging is fair.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's a great answer, me. So Jake and Ahmed, thanks for your questions. Obviously, all the listeners, please keep your questions coming. That's Neale@crunchgym.co.uk. We always appreciate your questions. And Ryan, I think I speak for all of us when I say thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's going to be a really good one to listen to. Robbie's actually been really well behaved. Like,
I've been biding my time. I've been very patient. I've been extremely patient, but my patience is wearing thin as I need to find out things about Ryan. Very, very important things about Ryan.
Okay, sure.
So I'll hit it. Would you ride rather a bike or a motorcycle?
So yeah, no. Let me just prepare for Ryan quickly. So we always like to do this little bit. So Robbie's got these quick fire questions that he's just gonna fire at you. So straight off the top of your head, mate, unfiltered. Don't really think about it.
Yeah, unfiltered.
Let it
Don't even think about it. Just okay. Apples or oranges? Apples or oranges?
Apples.
Carbs or protein?
Protein.
Chinese or Italian?
Chinese.
Black or white?
Black.
Neutral or bright colours?
Neutral.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Burger King or McDonald's?
Burger King.
James Bond or Jason Bourne?
James Bond.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Personal chef or personal trainer?
Personal chef.
Blonde or brunette?
Brunette.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Boobies or booty?
Booty. This is good.
Blue or... It's not bad, is it? It's not... Blue or red?
Blue.
Pink or brown?
You couldn't resist, could you? Pink.
Lovely. Here's a whole load of new ones. I found some new ones just for you, Ryan, because you're my special guest and stuff. So, would you rather be poor and good looking or wealthy and ugly?
Wealthy and ugly.
Okay. Would you rather be hairy or completely bald?
Completely bald.
Would you rather be super strong or super fast?
Super strong.
Would you rather have a crush on ugly people or have ugly people have a crush on you?
Ugly people have a crush on me.
Would you sleep with an ugly person who was good in bed or a gorgeous person who was crap in bed?
if I was single and available.
Yeah, if you were single available. Oh, lovely, yeah. You've done that a few times, haven't you? I can tell. Would you rather sit on... here's a good one. You'll love this one. Would you rather sit on someone's face or have them sit on yours?
Oh, God, Robin. I'll pass on that one.
Are you going to pass on that one?
Oh, wow.
Here's a really good one. Would you rather have constipation or explosive diarrhea?
Oh, explosive diarrhea.
Ooh, okay, that's good. Would you rather be a girl with a penis or a boy with a vagina?
I can see some editing coming out.
Nah, we got to leave these in. These are great.
Neither.
You neither, yeah?
Not sure.
Okay. And lastly, you know, would you rather your parents caught you masturbating or would you rather catch them masturbating?
This is creating some horrible visions, Robbie.
Oh, wow.
I would rather be caught. I'd rather be caught.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that's all the questions I've got time for.
Great. Oh, well, I spoke way too soon when I said rock.
Next level. I think the listeners should get some questions in for your next go.
Yeah, I think they should, yeah.
Wow, I don't even know. We're just going to have to end it on that. Like,
that's a brilliant way to end it, I reckon.
Sorry.
Tell you what, before we end it, let's just hear from Ryan. Just bring it back to some sort of normality as to the up and coming shows. Yeah?
Oh, wow.
So there's, you know, just so that to help publicise the PCA, there's a few shows still left this calendar year, isn't there? So if you can announce them for those who don't know.
The PCA is open to anyone from the mainland as well as the Channel Islands. The week after, there is the PCA Manchester at the Middleton Arena. Following that, we have the, the PCA London show in association with Muscleworks. That's at the the Hayes Theatre. And then we have the monstrous JP Classic, which is giving away £20,000 prize fund. And then to finish off the season, we have the PCA Midlands, which also has a considerable amount of prize money. And that's not including all the international shows that we've got coming up. So good luck to all the UK athletes taking part in those international contests. And, fingers crossed they're successful and can achieve a little bit of prize money and success.
Brilliant.
Great.
That's fantastic. So, yeah, we're just going to cut off and just chuck to a word from the sponsors. Guys, thank you so much for having for being on with us tonight. Ryan, if anyone does want to get in touch with you, are you about on social media? Is there anything that you'd like anyone to check out in particular?
Yeah, sure. Anybody who has any queries with regards to competing, feel free to inbox the PCA like page on Facebook or inbox the PCA official Instagram page, or if they need to, they can feel free to message me, on my personal Facebook as well.
Let's just run this out. Brilliant. That's brilliant, guys. Once again, gentlemen, thank you all so much for having us, for being on, and yeah, take good care. Yeah, thank you. Just end it there.
Sure. Z,
cheers,
thank you, Robbie, Neale. Cheers.
Cheers.